Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nayaswami Padma, and I'm here today to bring you the noontime inspiration from the original teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. I'm still reading out of Swami Kriyananda's autobiography, The Path. It was later retitled as The New Path. And today's reading says, "The Master, in his effort to break us of half-hearted willingness, what he used to call one-horsepower consciousness, urged us always to keep a positive outlook, to affirm possibilities rather than weaken them by too many so-called reasonable objections. I remember his greeting to me one day, 'How are you, Walter?' He used to call him Walter. 'Well,' I began. 'That's good,' he interposed promptly, nipping in the bud what he saw was only a mild case of vapors." I love this little story, this little example. And it is such an important thing to remember, not to be caught up by moods. Moods, elsewhere in the teachings, Yogananda describes as thwarted desires. They, continue to have us feeling sorry for ourselves and keep us tied to the post of ego. And so the way to overcome moods, or one way to overcome moods, is by staying in the affirmative, in the positive. And I used to observe this also in living with Swami Kriyananda for so many decades. Swamiji, as we used to call him, when you were in his presence, it was virtually impossible to have a critical or negative thought. It was more than once, many times, that I would go to him to speak to him about something work-related that was troubling me, that was, a challenge. I used to manage his projects for him. And I would enter his office. He'd be working. He'd ask me to sit. I would sit. He would finish what he was in the middle of. And that would usually take a few minutes. And then he would turn to me and say, "Well, what is it?" And honestly, I couldn't remember the problems. I couldn't remember the things that had been concerning and upsetting to me, because I was in an environment in his presence to think positively. And so I would say that I don't remember. And we'd chat lightly about this thing or that, and then I'd go back to my office, and suddenly solutions to the problems I was going to report, solutions would come to me. Staying in the positive. And ultimately, it's important to remember that the great ones, they look at us in the affirmative. They don't see the flaws. It's not that they aren't aware of the flaws, that, they're in denial about the flaws. They're just seeing us in our own highest potential. And when we can learn to view life through that lens, that's when we will experience the divine bliss in our souls. Joy to you, and we'll see you again on Monday. Many blessings. Bye-bye now.